Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the Divine Brothers meeting once again. This time coming to you from a new location. Still in China, still in Alabama, but now one brother has gone from Hawaii to some shitty country in the middle of Southeast Asia. Chase, where are you, man?
Those are the pillars of modern civilization. China, Cambodia, and Alabama, man. Those are the meccas.
How is it over there?
It's cool, man. It's cheap and it's safe, and the English is pretty good. I'm just in awe at how much shit costs. It's coming from Hawaii to here. It's like, uh, sure, I'll buy it. Sure, sure. It's just nothing. It's nothing. You want to go on a cab ride all the way to downtown? Take it's a buck. A buck. Are you kidding me, man? Cost me $60 to get to the airport in America. So I'm cloud nine in that regard, man. It's kind of nice.
Nothing will destroy your sense of American citizenship and dedication than visiting another country,
Yes.
especially a country where it's not just cheap, but the weather is nice, the people are nice, and all the stereotypes you associate. In my mind, Cambodia equals, definitely possible hostile filmings happening there. You know what I mean? Where
Hostile what?
they're gonna like do the movie Hostel there. They're gonna, capture you at the airport, and then you're gonna be slowly tortured for the highest bidder
That's
and stuff
Eastern
like
Europe,
that.
dude. That's not
Yeah,
Southeast Asia.
believe me, there's plenty of crazy shit that happens in Southeast Asia, Chase, But no, 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 look at Jay. He's at a cafe. He's sipping his little gay drink. He's
I'm
wearing a
on my
black tank
I'm on
top with
my
a full,
balcony, brother. I'm sitting on my balcony in my
you
room
know,
overlooking
it,
an alley, but it's like $23 a night. Can't beat
yeah,
this, dude. Yeah.
he's just, yeah, I can feel Chase's essential identity coming out in this, you know, the cheapness, the tank top, yeah, it's all coming out. It's all coming out. I like it.
Everybody speaks English. It's fucking great, man. It's easy.
So the question is, Austin, when are you going to finally leave Alabama, leave that place, and finally make yourself into the Asian monk we all know that you really are?
Me and Edwin have been talking about it. The answer is I don't really know, but I think I'm growing tired of Alabama, especially seeing the kind of escapades that Chase is getting up to. I'd like to go to an area where I could get a coffee for free or a dollar, 50 cents.
Yeah, see, me and Chase, I made
Yes.
the decision that Alabama's not good at 10 years old, when I went to live with mom instead of dad. Took Chase a little bit longer, but eventually he made the same call. Austin, I don't know what your excuse is, man, but it's time. It's time you get the fuck out of there and leave the land of Forrest Gump in favor of the land of spirituality and mysticism and tank tops.
Hey, can I ask you guys, do you prefer an iced coffee or a hot coffee?
I prefer an iced coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I heard it was bad for the esophagus to drink hot drinks, and then I turned pretty much completely to the chilled coffee.
Right,
Oh
yeah.
man,
I heard that too, of course, but I just think it tastes better. Iced coffee.
it's funny. In China, they like are fundamentally against ice and cold. Like they think anything cold going into the body is bad for you. They drink hot water with their meals and stuff like that. It depends on the weather. If it's fucking cold, like it is in Beijing, a good hot Americano. Yeah, oof, oof, that can hit the spot, man. I love that shit. But on a hot summer day in the middle of Southeast Asia, there's nothing better. Although I try to get less sugar in that shit. They go a little too sweet sometimes. How's that one taste?
It's good. The food quality over here is way better as well, man. I think it's healthier. Obviously, it's cheaper. It's just yeah. I think this food in
Definitely.
Southeast Asia is probably some of the best in the world. Dude, I go to the market the other day, man. Any fruit you want, like you were saying last week, reasonable shit. Reasonable
Yeah.
fucking prices, man. I got a whole thing of jackfruit, red jackfruit, like this huge box, $2. Took me 2 days to eat. It's just like, good God. It's
Is it the
fantastic stuff.
same sort of food as Vietnam, or is it a little more Indian, or like how? How's it feel?
It's not.
Thai vibes.
It's like Thai except not spicy.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm. I heard good things about Cambodia. Next week, we're going to have my buddy Paul on, and he was a Cambodian man. He told me
yeah.
about these river islands that are out there, and you can get like a real cheap place on the river islands, you know? And he says, dude, you just hang out in the river islands, high on drugs all day. That's what you do, you know? And yeah, he really, really had a soft spot for Cambodia. Have you found a woman yet, Chase? Are you going to come back with a wife?
Definitely will not come back with a wife. Although I'm hanging out with one tonight, maybe even two today. So we'll see.
Austin, do you see what he's doing here? Do you see this is why he's known in Southeast Asia as Sinful Chase? He gets off of a plane and he immediately starts berating the local women until they sleep with him. You know, this is the standard of Christianity that America has produced. Chase, I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud
Yeah.
of you.
There's a valuable lesson that I learned in Thailand from a buddy of mine. I can't even remember his name. How sad is that? But he was an older guy, probably in his 50s, not that good looking. And every weekend he was getting laid. I was like, dude, how are you doing that? We're in this tiny little town. He had his rule of four. He would set up 4 dates with women online every week. And he said 25% of the time, one of them just so always you set up four and one of them will show up. He would set up 4 dates for the same exact time. He said only one of them would ever show up. He goes, only one time did two people ever show up. So it's funny. So you always got to,
Probability.
well, yeah, you always got to be talking to two or three, and then one of them will work out. That's how it works.
All right. Good for you. Good for
Hey,
you. I hope.
Chase,
Um,
I want your opinion on something. So, Southeast Asia is known for many different things, but one thing that comes to mind is the ladyboy population. It's quite high in that area. Is it gayer if they have a small penis or a large penis?
Is it gayer?
Yes.
Well, over here we call it snake, Austin. So big or large, small or large snake. But
You're the snake.
I haven't seen any ladyboys in Cambodia. Surprisingly, that's a
I think that
huge
is a
thing in Thailand.
Thailand thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I
But
don't
you know,
see. I didn't see any in Vietnam money either. Did you? I didn't see them.
no, definitely not in China either. Like
Yeah,
never seen in China. It's a Thai thing. But also Austin, like you ask about the lady boys. I'm assuming that you have some personal interest in lady boys. Is that fair to say? You
best of
know?
both worlds, man. Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Dean, I'm not going to answer that question. I'll
That
say
means
that right
yes.
now.
There's definitely some interest there, you know. And I mean,
That,
honestly, Austin, I've been to Ladyboy Bar. You know, it was an interesting confirmation of my gayness because it was fucking Az who did it. Chase, he took me to one of those Ladyboy bars in Bangkok, and I felt so uncomfortable and so not turned on because I like masculinity. I like that. I like boys. You know what I mean? That it confirmed in me that I'm 100% gay. I don't want anything to do with the other sex, you know? And those boys, let me tell you, Austin, you could not tell. I like it was shocking how female they looked until they pulled out the cock. You had no idea, you know. So it's an interesting world and one I don't want anything to do with. But Austin, you do your thing, man. You want to go to Bangkok and find yourself a lady boy to fall in love with, dude. I know a lot of guys who've done it. And they're very happily off with their lady boy. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful for them, but I have a boyfriend already that I'm very happy with. But let me grab the steering wheel and take a hard right. So, so you knew I was basically a captive in Canada, especially the last part. I was living there illegally for a number of months. I'll admit it. But going back into the United States, I think there's like two layovers, Calgary, Toronto, and that final layover in Toronto, going back into the United States, stands out as one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my life because I genuinely had a notion in my mind that I was going to be arrested at the gate for some unknown crime. But I guess it wasn't really that unknown. It was really, I thought the Canadian Mounties were going to take me in for overstaying my travel visa. So there I am, basically definitely sleep deprived. I went on several ferries, several flights, and I go up to the border guard. I guess he's an American dude, and I'm like shaking in my boots, like I'm horrified. I want to cry. I shuffle up to this guy. I'm like the only guy in the room, and he starts asking me detailed questions about my reason for visiting Canada and how long I've been there. And I'm giving him like two-word answers, like, oh, I've been here for a while, I'm visiting friends, and I was just horrified. I really thought he was going to take me aside and put me in jail for God knows how long. But I finally made it through, and ever since then, in my mind, I go, I never want to visit another airport again in my life. It was such a so many bad experiences. But I want to ask Chase, like, what's it like traveling from Hawaii to Bangkok? Is that like a torturous experience, or did it go pretty smoothly?
That this is a very interesting topic. It's funny because I'm in Phnom Penh, which is Cambodia, not Bangkok. But so I've never flown into the airport here, and it was the same thing. I was like, I'm flying in. I get in like at 1 in the morning. I'm like, shit, how am I gonna find a taxi? Like, like it's a little nerve-wracking. It's like, all right, is anybody gonna be there? How do I find it? I'm trying to look up videos. And it was a little uneasy because it's like, oh man, it's late. Am I gonna be able to find a ride? I've never been to the city. It was so seamless, man. And it was so easy. It like nowadays, just like getting a grab, you walk across the street. The guy was waiting right there. Everybody spoke perfect English. Like it was such a good start from the beginning. But as far as traveling, I fucking hate traveling, dude. I mean, there are tiers to traveling. Like, you probably haven't gone business class. If I can ever go big dog, the only way to travel is business class where it lays down. Like, dude, being back in the back with sheep, I always get the window. I'm not an aisle guy. I'm not, some people like to get up and walk around. I'm a window guy. I like to lean up against it. Back, legs. It's fucking brutal, man. I had 11 hours and I had a layover and then another 6 hours. I fucking hate traveling. I hate flying. Um, Airports don't bother me if I can go to like a lounge. I have like a lounge card and get like some free drinks and food, but it's just uncomfortable. It's fucking uncomfortable. The only way to travel is with money. If you're traveling broke, it's fucking awful. I don't get the appeal of it. I really don't.
I know that feeling though, Austin. I had a moment in China where I was I had a visa issue. It's a long story, but I got into China on basically a visa for a company that I wasn't working for. It was a long story. It got changed immediately the second I got in there. But I showed up also at like 1 a.m. in Beijing. And it's the big moment where I go up to the fucking, the place and I'm speaking to them in pidgin Chinese, you know what I mean? And there and I remember she said, "Sir, could you please step aside here?" That horrible moment where you get stepped aside. And I sat there, and then suddenly four officers, like Chinese CCP officers, come over and they take me to the little white room, you know? And I remember thinking like,
Anal search.
this is it. Like I'm either gonna go to jail or I'm gonna they're gonna send my ass on a plane somewhere, you know? And they asked me like, "Can you tell us about this company?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a consultant, educate English consultant, and stuff." And they're like, "Really? Can we call them?" And I was like, "Oh, well, it's 1 a.m., And they're like, "Hmm." They tried calling the company 5 times, nobody picked up, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna let you through." I was like, "Thank you," and I felt my butthole get cold, that moment where you're just like, "Oh shit, this is it, this is
Didn't
it," you know.
didn't they know weird like they know everything? Didn't they ask you if you were a homosexual? Am I misremembering this? This is
It was the
correct.
very first time I came to China, the
That's
very
scary.
first time.
That's fucking scary.
And I come in and the guy is just like, "It's your first time in China?" I was like, "Yep." And he was like, "So you're going to teach here?" I was like, "Yep." And he's like, "You're a homosexual?" And I just looked at him,
What?
"Yes." And he says, "Welcome to China." That was it. It was just like a little like, "Hey, we're watching." That
They
was
already
all
knew.
it was.
They knew
That was all it was.
it
I
was
mean, it's not hard to find out. Like, dude, have you ever you know that thing mom uses LexisNexis? Do you know what that is?
a background
Yeah,
check.
a
Yeah.
legal search and stuff. And I one time did it on myself. Chase, they had, oh my God, just, oh my God, it was horrifying. They had shit like every person who had ever Googled my name. I found out that like this was weird. My elementary school PE teacher from
Oh,
Jones Valley,
stop.
Austin,
Stop.
she had Googled me multiple times. I was like, what the fuck is this? You know? And of course, there's all the like, yes, this guy's been on Grinder. This guy's done this website. He's watched this pornography. And it's just all there. Every website I'd ever visited in my entire life. Anyone who'd ever looked up my name and stuff. And I was just like, well, this is, there's no fighting it. I've already, I'm in the matrix. There's no getting it,
That's
you
the
know?
proper. That's what you gotta come to the conclusion. It's just like all your crazy shit. You just gotta embrace it. You can't fight it. You can't. You just be like, yeah, whatever. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the
I hope
proper.
in the future that like every politician, it's just going to be so out there and everybody's so fucked that every politician, like when they get up on the presidential debate, they're just going to be like, "Yes, I had a plunger up my ass. Who hasn't? You know, can we move past it? Can we talk about the issues? You know what I mean?" Like, I hope that's the only place we can go where there are no secrets anymore, and we just have to accept everything. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dean, your elementary school PE teacher told you?
You may remember because we went to the same elementary school. There was a woman. I still somehow remember this name. Do you remember a woman named Miss Wagner? Wagner.
It does sound
Uh,
familiar. Was she a
she
younger
had
girl?
she had an assistant who had longer hair. Miss Wagner had like curly golden hair. She had an assistant with brown long hair, and I ran into her years later with Miss Gillespie, who was the school counselor at Jones Elementary School. They were watching a movie, and we ran into each other years later, and like, oh my God, I remember you. And you were such a little shit, and all that. And anyways, that's all I can remember. But it was just one of those random fucking moments where you're like, holy shit, that's weird, like. Of all the fucking people to look me up, it wasn't my friend from high school. It was my elementary school PE teacher.
It-
Ugh.
there's been two times in my professional career where I have these are professional. One was a doctor. One was like a psychologist woman.
Yeah.
Like women, and they're just like, what? How many sessions have you had with this teenage boy or this like pre-teenage? Like it was just like weird. It was just it didn't make any sense. I just had one recently. It's just like it's like what you're saying this. How often do you talk to her? Really, 2 to 3 times a week? That's not normal. I think women. I don't know. There's some women do some strange shit sometimes in their professional. Like they always goes after the men pedophile shit. But there's a lot of fucked up women looking up little
Hey,
kids they had
this
in
is
fucking
interesting.
PE class.
Austin, did you ever have? I'm guessing Austin will probably pass on this question, but Austin, did you ever have an older man introduce you to things? You know what I mean? Did you ever have that experience? Or Chase, did you ever have a
I'll say Chase also. Don't say
older
Chase.
an older woman? I remember there was a phase, Chase, where you were going through Cougars on 30A. You know what I mean? Remember you go to the dance place there on
Well, you
30A?
asked Austin, but there was one time, and I'm gonna interrupt all, but I made Dean leave the apartment in West Palm, and he was so disgusted with me because this older woman came over and her husband was like an invalid. And I told Dean, he's like, you,
He was an invalid? I thought she was just cheating. He was an invalid too?
he was like, he was dying, he was old, and he couldn't get it up. And,
Oh my God.
and
Oh
Dean,
my God. Oh, it makes it even worse.
you were so ashamed of me.
Still a shame.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, well,
Ugh.
whatever.
All right, let's get back to Austin's older man experience. Austin, tell
But
us.
no, Dean, I never had that experience. Chase did ask me to touch his foot one time, and I don't know if I can really call that what you were talking about. I touched it with I rubbed it with a controller. I didn't,
Oh,
I
Did
don't
Chase.
I
I
did I
don't
really do that? I probably did.
I don't I don't consider that a homosexual experience though. It's just a weird one.
I had a problem with athlete's foot as a
I
young
know,
man. Yeah,
always, man. His feet always had issues, and going to podiatrists and shit like that.
yeah. Yeah.
There was a great story with Patrice O'Neill where it was this guy Pat something, and he was talking about his first sexual experience, and he was 15, and he was fucking a 45-year-old like woman in the neighborhood, like a
Hmm.
15-year-old kid fucking a 45-year-old woman, and she was like, what
Wow.
a weird experience. Like, but he was like grateful for it. He was like, no, I'm so grateful for her. She
100%.
showed me, man. She showed me how to treat. He's like, I didn't even know what a vagina was. I thought it was like a nest, you know? Like you said, she showed me all the things you got to do and how to do it. And then he told his buddy in the neighborhood, like, he's like, dude, I'm getting pussy. And the fucking buddy tattled and they kicked the old woman out of the neighborhood. They're like,
What?
you got
Why do they do that? Why do they ruin it for people? I don't know. That when it goes that way, it's actually a beneficial thing. It's a good thing, man. Yeah.
it's a weird thing to think about how when it comes to like boys touching girls, yeah, no way. But older woman taking a young man, that's just like it's the old South Park episode. Nice. Good job.
So
No.
Vic took me to a very high end place in Colombia once. It was fucking like guards at the gate, like poorhouse place. It was fucking awesome. You could go there and hang out all day and drink and stay by the pool. You didn't have to bang anybody, but there was a Colombian guy that came in with a young kid. The kid was like 16 or it was his birthday. And he spoke decent English because I guess they went back and forth. But I was talking to the dad. Me and Vic were talking to the dad. Or maybe I was talking to him, but he was like, this is what you do. He's like, this is where he becomes a man. Like he took his son to the finest whorehouse in town and he got him laid with a beautiful fucking 25-year-old. He's like, the intention, he said, is to get the boy fixated on women instead of stupid shit like drugs. And that's kind of the culture down there. It's all right, you're 16, you're 17 now. You're gonna go get your brains fucked out. You're gonna learn what it's like to be a man. And that's the tradition. And I was like, man, that was interesting. I remember my experience there was very good. Actually, an expat came up to Vic afterwards, after I was like 22 at the time. He's like, hey, is that your son? You're doing a good thing for your. And it was a good thing. I was in college. I wasn't getting laid. And then I got laid by this beautiful chick. And like your confidence gets a little higher. You're like, oh shit, this is what it was a positive experience. Positive
I
experience, man.
wish I wish I could have fucked at 16. That would be like, because that's
Me too.
peak
Me
sexual
too.
energy.
Me too.
You know,
Yeah.
like that would be great. I didn't get my proper experience until I was fucking 20, well into the game, you know. But it would have been great to have that teenage horny energy, you know, and to just go in there like stumbling over yourself, but you've got that rookie energy, you know what I mean? You're just ready to go. Let's do this, baby, you know, and you're stumbling and fumbling, but eventually you score the touchdown. Like, that'd be a good experience, man. I think if I ever have myself a little gay son, I'm gonna take him to the club and find him a lady boy and say, "Go fuck her brains out, buddy. Come on." You know that
Hey,
that'd be the fatherly thing to do.
well, speaking of ladyboys, because you guys brought this up earlier, so I
Yeah,
too went.
Austin brought it up. Yeah.
I too had an experience at a ladyboy
Thanks, Dan.
club. I got drunk with some Australian guys in Bangkok once, and they took me there. And I remember this. I remember going to the bathroom to take a piss, and this chick coming in that looked like a chick. I was at the, standing at the urinal, and then
But she's coming into the men's room.
whatever it was, I don't know if it's a men's
All
room there
right.
or whatever you call it, but she or he took a piss right next to me. And
Mhm.
she was looking at my dick like, oh, nice. And then I looked down at her, and it's this pretty woman, but she had this hairy fucking dick. And I just was so disgusted that the
Mhm.
two could intermingle. And there was like a stint. This is why I don't get with you guys being gay. The smell of a man is disgusting. I mean, there is nothing worse than a
What?
man. Man smells sweat. It's
Asians don't sweat. They don't smell. I don't know what you. Maybe
uh,
you had a gross dick.
whatever this was had a man stench to it, and it was me. It was female, a good looking female with a hairy dick and a stench, and I almost threw up. Couldn't handle
I,
it, man.
w I will say
Couldn't
there
handle it.
is something. There is something in Asia. We call it Mongolian dick. You know, and basically what it is like, Asians usually are just totally hairless, right? Like for example, Wu Yin, no pubes, man. Like he
What?
just hairless.
He
Oh
hasn't
yeah,
hit puberty yet. Wow.
no, it's just how it is, man. Just like no hair, man. I've met a lot of guys like that. And but there's some Asians where they're hairless, but they got that Mongolian dick, man. And it's a fucking Vietnamese jungle down there. Like thick, black hair, like way thicker than a white dude. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. I ran into it in Vietnam a few times. I remember thinking like, damn, this is kind of gross. Like you gotta. It looks like kind of Jerry curls. You remember that from the '80s and stuff like that. Like a little greasy, not necessarily good. Maybe you were dealing with that, Chase. Some of that, Mongolian dick.
Yes, it was disgusting. I still remember the stench. It's still like
Stenches, I can't imagine a stench, man. Don't you keep clean? I'm very fastidious about keeping clean, man. Oh, I use Loctane and all kinds of stuff. My Gigi, sorry, I'm Chinese. I wash my dick all the time, man. I gotta make sure that thing is pristine. The whole body gets washed up. And in China, we do foot baths all the time. Make sure the feet are pristine.
men stink, man. Men are disgusting. Just
I think you
disgusting
just
human
don't have
beings.
enough twinks in your life. That's what's going on.
Could
Like you
be.
got too, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like all that really separated Chase and Attraction was a shave and a bath, and
Yeah.
maybe he would have changed his
The
mind.
dick
That's
wasn't the
it.
problem. It was the
Yeah,
smell that was the problem.
the dick was
Uh,
not mentioned as an issue. It was the
Yeah.
smell.
Austin,
I
as
like that.
usual, you sum it up perfectly. If there was a shave and a bath, I could be into ladyboys. You're right. You nailed it. Good God.
Yeah.
Thank
There
you
we
for
go.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it would be impolite as an American not to mention that this is a sacred week, a famous week, one that'll go down in history as the inauguration of Mr. Donald J. Trump.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's
And
yeah.
yeah, Chase just did the Elon. Thank you, Elon. Salute.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a moment. It's so interesting because I'm just I think I'm permanently on Reddit. Like just I'm every day I got to at least peek. And the utter meltdown that's going on there. Like they lost their goddamn minds over that Elon salute. I have never seen them just. He's a Nazi. It's confirmed. He's a Nazi exactly like Hitler. Ah! And it was just this impotent scream into the void. You know what I mean? And I don't know how long that can go on, but I feel the exhaustion already and it's week one. You know what I mean? Like this can't continue. They can't keep screaming. There's no fucking way. It's just it's got to die. It's got to, you know? And we'll see what happens, man. But it's been quite a week, Chase. How do you feel about it?
I was curious what Austin thinks about it.
Man, I genuinely don't know how to feel about Trump. I feel like the guy is all over the map from being a shill of some kind, like every politician, and being like a true free agent that might just do some wild stuff, and citizens might win for once. So I got really mixed feelings about Trump, man. A lot of people despise the guy. I think he's a weirdo. All those pictures with his daughter, his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, for example, like really throws me off. Some of the answers that he gave, like I don't think Trump is this Snow White clean guy that Trumpers think he is. I think he's a criminal. I just think he's not a Washington criminal. I think he's a New York criminal. So that's what excites me is that things might possibly go a different direction.
I fucking love Trump. Love him. Wish he was like my uncle or something like that. And it because well, one, his daughter is smoking hot. I'd probably, she is. We can't deny that.
Yeah,
But
Chase has some like Alabama incest in
that's
him,
yeah,
Mr. Wolf.
yeah. Oh,
Well,
she
it showed
is.
through right there.
I do think he's an agent of change, and I don't know what that evokes. Is it good? Is it bad? It's probably a mix of both, and I'm for all of it. Just anything different. My whole life, these choreographed presidents have just, we change hardly anything, and we talk a whole bunch of. Nobody likes politicians. They're useless, and it's the lowest form of existence to me. He is not one, and he's a shit starter. He is an instigator. He goes up and he pokes you. Hey, you want to fuck with me? Let me fuck with you first. I love it because world leaders don't know what to do with a bully. He's a bully, and but to me, it's like, look, you got the most powerful military in the world. Act like a fucking bully for once. Act like it. You've been just a passive little bit. We've been just the bitch of the world for so long. Now we got someone in there that's going to play the opposite. Good. It evokes change. It either makes us better, it destroys us. I'm for both. It's just at least it's something different. It's something
Yeah,
different. So
it
power
is
to him.
different. You got to admit that it has been a barrage of a first week. It was, what was that, 1,500 executive orders?
Ugh,
There's fucking ice raids going on in
ugh.
Chicago. They've signed a ceasefire in Gaza. He's meeting with Putin next week. He's coming to China a month later. How's this 80-year-old man go? He must have some hell of a diet pill. Like, just he's got that energy, that Adderall energy. Something's going on with him. You know what I mean? But I got to tell you, man, the other thing is I have never seen the Democratic Party so broken. They are
Good.
leaderless. They have no response, no message. I have who's in charge? Who's leading the Democratic Party? Can anybody give me a name? Is anybody running the show? Like, I literally have never seen such a massive political defeat in my entire lifetime. This is brutal, absolutely brutal. And I just know that we're in for a new age of America. As Trump said, it's golden age. The golden age is beginning. I don't know if it's going to be golden. Might be another shade, maybe a copper age,
Might
maybe a
be an
rust.
orange age.
Yeah, orange is the color of rust, right?
Could be
Yeah,
this.
that's
Could
true.
be back to the Stone Age. We don't know. But yeah.
we
I,
don't know. But Chase, you're right. It's different, man. It's different.
I've always considered myself a Democrat, as somebody on the left, maybe even like kind of far on the left.
What a
Ideas like,
pussy. Go ahead.
yeah, well, that's fair to say. Universal basic income, universal health care, stuff like that. I've always felt that way. But my feeling is that the Democrats did it to themselves. They've lied to us since I was born. They've lied to us. Not once have they made a move, in my opinion, that's positively affected like the mass, the middle class. The middle class shrinks every year. You know, prices go up, inflation goes up every year. Yeah, it's getting worse and worse. So I think their loss, a massive defeat, was well deserved. And I hate to say that as someone who agrees with what they say, but what they say is different from what they do. They're really just pro war, pro business, pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Austin, let me give you a little history lesson. Yeah. Okay. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to get lectured at. Yeah. There was a fundamental shift that happened in the 1990s under Bill Clinton. It was the advent of neoliberalism. And that is where the Democratic Party, as you describe it, died, where they became corporate, where they sold their soul to the highest bidder, and the working man got lost. That's why they all shifted over to Trump, because they have got no attention in the past few decades. And just like Chase was saying, you see the prices for shit in another country. Good God. How is anybody surviving in America? I know nobody's got retirement saved up. God knows if you got a medical crisis coming on the way, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do. Into the loan shark place you go, cash now. And then you're fucked for the rest of your life, and your family's fucked. And the poverty just grows and grows and grows. And you wonder why there's so many goddamn homeless people on the streets. The Democratic Party has failed to deliver anything of substance, anything of meaning. The closest they got to that is Obamacare, and even that is a sham compared to the single payer system that everybody was promised. So until there's a fundamental shift in the identity of the Democratic Party, Austin, I can't adopt that mantle until they start to actually buy into the shit you were just describing. And until I see that, I'd
Well,
rather have the guy who's all chaos.
yeah, like the Reddit you talk about. Reddit's unbelievably lunatic liberal, like lunatic liberal. I don't understand the morality premise. Like Austin, I'm with you. Would never call myself a conservative. I think everybody has the right to medical. That should be fundamental. And then at some point, we're going to have some type of income base to support the population because jobs will be obsolete. I'm with you, but it's just this. You can't say this is offensive. How dare they raise a hand in a certain way? He's a Nazi. I'm like, where do these idiots get this shit, this morality shit? Like, the way I think is correct and the way you think is wrong, and I'm going to persecute you. I don't know what happened to the Democrats with that. That's why Trump's so appealing. Trump, would you like to apologize? No, fuck off. I'm not apologizing. I'm doubling down. I'm like, good, good. They need to fuck off, man. No, the world does not apologize to you. So for me, it's very much, I just got nauseated with the bullshit and the preaching. Couldn't take it anymore. So I don't know where that comes from so strong. And that's all I see on the news. It's just bitching. This is morally incorrect. I'm like, who the fuck are you to tell us what's morally correct, man? I don't understand what, and it seems like most people live in that plane. Most people want to live there the way I think's correct. And it's like, how the fuck do you know if you're correct? So yeah, that's all I got.
There's a fundamental impotence that's infecting America, man. No, nobody feels like they can change anything. Nobody feels like they can perform. You
Impotence
know?
is correct. Yes.
Yeah. I fundamentally believe that's the issue. That feeling of powerlessness leads to screaming into the void online,
Mm, yeah.
and it's going to do nothing. But if you truly have no power, what else can you do? Until it's odd too, because after I scream and complain about something, it dies. But for some reason, the opposite seems to happen where people scream and they don't get heard, and that makes them want to scream more. You know what I mean? Like I would think it would eventually die down, but I don't know. Something fundamentally has to happen where Americans feel, at the very least, like they've got some control over their lives. Because right now, that impotence, man, they can't get it up. No matter how hard they try, they
But
just
so their control goes into expressing morality for like others. It's like a misconstrued altruism. Like, oh, Elon Musk is obviously a white supremacist. I'm like, based on what, motherfucker? What are you, a picture?
he's
Like,
a
where?
South African face. He's a
Yeah,
white South African.
yeah, right. Yeah, one of the most diverse fucking countries in the world, black, white, and Indian. By the way, it's just I don't know why it goes that direction. Like, if you're angry, why wouldn't you put it? I don't think anyone has an identity anymore. Right? Maybe it's just impotent. Everybody's been neutered, so they just try to come out in altruism, which isn't altruism at all. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
If I may, I've fallen into this trap myself. I think when a person, like Dean was saying, or it feels themselves to be powerless, what's left is a fantasy world where you are powerful. And you construct identities where you're the moral leader, you're on the moral high ground, and you're shouting down at people, and maybe you feel like you're getting things done. And I feel like this is the position they've been in. And I've talked to a lot of people that's kind of on a parallel track in the world of spirituality. They don't do anything, but they have all these spiritual labels that they apply to themselves, so they're better than everybody. They're not Democrats, but their third eye's open, or they're on the fifth dimension. I feel like there's a parallel there, but they're both living in a different kind of fantasy world. But they're both living in fantasy worlds where they're superior in some strange, intangible way that you could never really point to, but they feel it. That's enough for them.
So Austin, are you saying that if people are living in fantasy worlds, whether it's spiritual or on Reddit or whatever, is that are you labeling that as inherently not a good place to be? Yeah. And if so, where do you want to be? Where is the place where we should all live? Should we be firmly rooted in reality? You know, is that where you think people should be pushed towards?
Not necessarily. I think it's perfectly valid to live in fantasy worlds as long as you admit to yourself and others that that's what you're doing.
I'm in the
People love
Matrix.
fantasy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Say, I'm living in a fantasy world where I'm the king and I have the moral high ground in every situation. And that's completely fine if you can admit that it is what it really is, which is an ephemeral kind of ghost world that you like to hide out in. But if you're saying the badness comes when you mistake fantasy for reality, because there's a place
Mhm.
for fantasy. You can escape to fantasy for a little while. I think it's freeing. I think there's a lot of good qualities of good reason to do that. But if you mistake fantasy for reality, that's when the mistakes creep in. And if you believe that you're capable of jumping 13 feet in your mind and you're only capable of jumping 10 feet, you're going to miss the ledge and fall to your demise. So that's what I see. And I think this is like the scenario for people in spirituality and people and what's equivalent to spirituality, or at least a kind of delusional spirituality that I find in political ideologies.
It was
Man.
interesting with that election because that was a good like the 13 feet. I felt like Trump was so beatable. I mean, you just needed somebody with a little bit of competence that didn't say anything, but just a touch of intelligence. Biden was senile, and then you had Kamala, who was just kind of stupid. Like there was nothing of substance that ever came out of her mouth. You just needed someone a touch above mediocre that you could have ran, and they probably would have won. I mean, it was this close, guys. I mean, it's just people don't love Trump. Just the other option you gave, they were just like, really? This chick? the one that says she wouldn't do anything different as the country's going to fucking hell. Like you put an idiot in there. If they put anybody with substance, I think we're having a different conversation right now. So I think that was it. Like they needed to jump 13 feet, and they put someone in there that I think she could jump 10. She jumped like 5. It wasn't hard. So now we got Trump, and now Trump got a guy on the warpath, man. Like, hey, you tried to put me down, you tried to take me out. Fuck it. I'm gonna change everything. But it's this close. It's this fucking close, man. It was just a gross oversight on the part of the Democrats because they didn't want to tell a black woman that she couldn't run for president. And
So
that they couldn't tell a black woman no, and they should have. If they would have said no, we need to put someone competent in there, we would have a Democratic president right now, 100%.
I thought she was Indian, but
Wait, all right, whatever.
that's
Fuck she
important,
is.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But an old Austin memory is coming to my mind. Yeah, Austin, you one time instructed Chase in the art of lucid dreaming. You gave him this book, and what was that book called, Chase? Like Lucid Dreaming, or
Dr. LeBerg, I believe, was his name.
yeah, I remember flipping through that. I wrote, this was way, way back. It was actually something I had genuine success with. I lucid dreamed a few times. It was kind
Yeah.
of amazing. But um, I remember one of the things that they talked about was training yourself to recognize when you're in a dream. Yeah. Like you see, like I remember one of them was like you look at a clock, you close your eyes, you look back, and the clock is somehow different. It's changed. And it's these little reality checks that you do, and you suddenly realize, oh shit, I'm in a dream. And that this is the critical moment of Genesis when things really start to happen. Yeah. And I wonder, are there moments like that for life? Austin, you were talking about the fantasy and reality world. Like, are there checks that you can do where you sort of check your fantasy, or you check your reality? And in the same way, Chase, like, could the Democratic Party have done something where they checked themselves and they said, you know what? What if we're not really up to date with the American people? What if we're doing things in a totally isolated way where people have no idea, like they're not going to follow this message that we're putting? Are there ways where you can check yourself, so to speak?
that's very difficult. I think there's people that are so engulfed by their not psychosis, but their delusion that they're almost impossible to wake up. Because I've had ideas about myself that were shattered by the reality. You think you're brave until you get in a certain situation, and then you have
Mm.
to face reality. I think, like Chase was saying, like people like Morning Joe, I believe that was the case. Biden came out. The guy was obviously in mental decline. He says, "This is the best Joe Biden we've ever seen."
I remember
But
that.
we have videos of Joe Biden as a young man who was mentally sharp, was a great speaker, was incredibly sharp, and that was an outright lie, an untruth. And anyone grounded in reality could have seen that. But this is a person who is like a thought leader, is an influencer who is deluded and deludes other people by putting these ideas in their head. In the idea, or in the book, Simulation, Simulacra, he calls these people simulators. And what these people do is they put simulated realities in your head and they alter the way that you see the world. And this is why these people are so dangerous. And this is why it's so dangerous when people like that are themselves deluded. But I don't know if that guy's malicious or genuinely mentally unwell himself. But either way, he's like patient zero in a sense of further deluding other people down the line.
But you
The
see, that's interesting. Go ahead, Chase. Yeah.
I was going to say Dana White was at when Trump won, the head of the UFC, and he came up on stage to speak, and he said, "Everything that's happened, this is karma." And to me, I'm like, yeah, it is, because when you try to control a narrative, when everybody knows it's false, you know, just the Morning Joe fucking example, and then with Kamala, this is not the right candidate. We need to tell her, but we can't because she's a black woman. That would be wrong. You have these ridiculous narratives that cost you, but that you're living by an artificial construct. And this is what happens. They're the opposite. Fucking physics. It pulls back. So Trump is an amalgamation of all this shit, man. It was inevitable. It was coming like a tidal wave. Still.
See, Austin, I think that example of courage, right, is really, really good, right? You don't know how you think you're a courageous person, and then you're on a battlefield, and you're fucking burying your head in the sand. You know what I mean?
I think like I
I
was dead. That's what I would do.
I just finished reading the autobiography of Ulysses S. Grant, which is really good, by the way. But the first time he's commanding men, right? It's at the very beginning of the Civil War, and this guy was a quartermaster. He was an accountant, right? He was just trying to like get everything, get all the books balanced, and that's always where he was. He was an officer, but he was a good accountant, all that sort of stuff. And suddenly, half the generals are in the South, so they're like, "Okay, hey, Ulysses, you're brigadier general now. Go fight this battle over here." And he talks about fucking shivering in his boots, just like I am fucking commanding men. Like these guys, I'm sending all these guys to their death, and I was absolutely seized with fear. I could not imagine how I was going to do this. And then the moment comes where he's about to face the enemy, and he's about to start the battle, and he sees that the enemy ran away, and he was like, "Oh, they're just as scared as me," you know. And from that moment on, he's like, the fear never came back. From that moment on, you know what I mean? And but what that makes me think is the only way to break the fantasies or to break the illusions within your mind is to have experience. You know, real world experiences that go beyond fantasy that confirm the character of who you are, you know. And now I know we don't all have battles that we're waiting to fight, but perhaps there are genuine experiences across our lives that can confirm who we truly are and what our reality really is, and where fantasy needs to have its line drawn.
Wasn't he a drunk
Yeah.
though?
No, that's a big misconception about him. He had one drunken episode in the Mexican American War. He was caught, and it followed him on his permanent record his entire life. And the fact is, he never had a drink of alcohol after that. He never even cursed. Not once in his life did he curse.
Oh, all right.
That's how serious this dude was, you
Well,
know?
didn't he have more troops in almost every battle as well? He had the advantage.
Uh, in let me see, not the first battle. I remember that he was not at an advantage in the first battle, but after that, yeah, he always commanded a superior number of troops. He was an engineer, man, totally calculated,
Yeah,
and
but
you
I mean, you
see it
got the
in paper.
advantage every. But you taking Lee or you taking Grant as your general if it was an equal fight?
Well, Lee was a superior general,
Yeah.
but there were critical. Lee made, for example, at Gettysburg, he made a critical mistake, and Ulysses was smart enough to seize the mistake. He was not the best general, but he knew how to adapt, and he was a brilliant logician. He knew exactly how to get people moving, how to get supplies where they needed to do. He was the supply line guy,
Okay.
and because of that, he won the war.
Fair.
Yeah, yeah. But anyways, just back to that idea, experience, man. I think that's how you do it. I don't
Yeah,
know how
yeah,
you find those experiences.
but experience. But then, how you fucking interpret the experience, man? I mean, I see
See,
people going through shit all the time, and they interpret. I'm like, what? You're
yeah.
taking this out of this? You're
It,
doubling down? Like,
it's interesting. I was thinking about this week. You know, when God commands, Abraham to kill Isaac, you know,
fucking lunatic.
and then at the last second, the angel comes in. I was like, I was just fucking with you. You
Yeah.
know, like if that happened to me, I would be like, this God is crazy. Well, what the fuck is wrong with you, God? You know, I could not interpret that sort of event in that way. But then again, I'm just a puny human, and maybe I shouldn't be attempting to understand the will of God. You know what I mean? And see, this is why experience might be the only teacher. No one can really know how Abraham felt in that moment. You know. Austin, we need some insight here. Please offer us guidance, man.
Yeah, it sounds like you're an empiricist by nature, Dean. That the best kind of evidence is those that are attained through the senses. And I would agree.
Yeah.
Alfred
So
White Northhead, and the introduction to his work, Process and Reality, talks about philosophy and how it should be done. He said flights of thought should be like an airplane lifting off the ground. You go to the heights, but you always have to land again and check the theories that you developed while you're in the air. And I think this is
interesting.
just a metaphor for life. Like some people never come back down to test their ideas, and genuinely they don't want to know if they're false or not, right? And this is very complicated, and this is what in my estimation was different between the artist and the mentally ill. Is the artist, I think, understands what he's doing is a creative act, and exists in an imaginal world that's not
Mhm.
the physical world, but the delusional person takes these fantasies for reality. And this is what I saw. I mean, it takes place in both the Democratic and Republican Party. Everybody does it to some degree. I mean, I certainly do it too. But it's really easy to point out in other people that are deluded in a different way than you are, because you can never really. It's really hard to see your own delusions, obviously.
Do you have experience in this? The idea of
Um,
like taking off into fantasy. I suppose meditation is probably like this, yeah, but where you can you're deep in your mind and you've flown off into the air and you come back down and now it's time to be a little Descartes and let's test this thing, you know?
Yeah, I had a lot of ideas about myself. Like at some in some fashion, I was like destined or was in some degree like this great magician, especially when I was really young. Like anything was possible, and I'd be the best meditator and the best lucid dreamer, the best astral projector, and also the most righteous person. Like I would never do bad. I would never lose my temper. I had a lot of mistaken ideas about what I was really capable of. And these are things I don't know, man. I wasn't born with them, but I do. I recognize my failures and I work towards correcting those mistakes, which is a much better position to be in than to mistakenly believe that you're a lot stronger and better than you really are, which that's how I felt. And that's what led to, talking about addiction and stuff. Those ideas that oh, all these other people were too weak. They couldn't handle pills, like I can handle it. I'm different. That's a delusion that was crushed enormously, by interacting with reality. So that's a really good example, actually.
Wow, that's a super healthy thing to do. Like that's really that reminds me of the Ram Dass quote where he's like, if you think you're so enlightened, spend a weekend with your parents. Like
Yeah.
these incredibly humbling moments where you realize, wait a second, I'm not some saint. I'm I fuck up bad. But it's better, you're absolutely right. It's better to work from that position of knowing you're a fuck up and trying to improve than assuming that you're Jesus Christ.
I
Yeah.
think it's as simple as that. I think you either, when you're making your shifts, either from your failures or successes, it's attributed to the internal. And then the people that really never get better, when I talk to them, it's mostly external because this happened or this person. And sometimes that's the case, but if there's never any internal acknowledgement, whichever direction it's headed, then I think you're stuck in the delusion. That keeps the delusion, makes it stronger.
But is the goal of the delusion, like, let's say you have a good delusion, like Austin, like, I truly am a righteous person. And then reality forces you to realize, oh, fuck, I'm not a righteous person. Is the conclusion to say, I'm not a righteous person, but I'm going to try to do better? Or is the conclusion to say, I'm not a righteous person, but one day I will be a righteous person? Do you maintain the dream of the delusion, and push towards it? Or do you reject the dream and simply adapt to your new reality?
Well, you have to adapt, but you definitely don't retract your ideals. You see, that was my ideal before. I thought that's what I thought I was, but it's still a righteous pursuit. So I'm still going to do that. Yeah.
The ideal remains.
Yeah. But you have to understand that you might not be up to the task of becoming a saint, but it's righteous to try.
It's righteous to try. So you try.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely do try. Um, yeah, I don't tell myself I'm capable of this exactly. I say I don't know because I haven't been there yet. But I know that I'm capable of attempting, and I know that there's good karma from intending and trying to do the correct thing.
So, would you rather be in that sort of place of ignorance where you say, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll still strive diligently? Or would you rather have the beacon of hope in the distance that says, one day I can get there?
You can have both,
Do you have both?
to some extent, yes. In the very long term, yes. But I would say you always have to measure out your fantasy with your reality. And
Mm.
I wouldn't even use the term fantasy, but these kind of mental models that we build for ourselves that we feel like we would like to attain at some point in the future. like you have to believe on some level that they're attainable, or else you wouldn't even try. So I do believe on some level that I'm capable of becoming a saint, yes, or a Buddha, or like at least a someone that's really at a very advanced. You know, I'm not saying I'm not in that way right now, but I definitely believe that I'm capable of it, or else I wouldn't be attempting it at all.
Balance.
Mm,
Mm. I
yeah.
like it, Chase. Chase, I think you need a little bit of this wisdom in your life. Get out of your pie in the sky attitude and bring that pie back down to the surface.
It is the middle way. This is what the Buddha taught. It's so easy to get lost in the delusion, man, especially if things are going right, though. If things are going right, the delusion can grow to monumental proportions. And
Mm.
I think those are the hardest shifts to make. Usually,
Or
if the delusion and things are going bad, then I think it's much easier to make the shift, man. But I've talked to a lot of
Mm.
people with cash. The egos on these people, it's like, this person, fuck him, fuck. I'm like, dude, I never hear anything coming from you because they don't have to, because they fund everything. So it's really kind of about where you are in the hierarchy too. Matters
see,
a
Yeah.
I can
lot.
imagine a world too where the reality consumes you so much you're incapable of fantasy. You know,
Maybe
like
desperation. Sure.
yeah, like life is so shitty and so awful that you can't even entertain a dream.
Yep.
You know, and I think that yeah, there must be a reason we've been endowed with the ability to fantasize. You know, and I like that analogy a lot, Austin, of going up into the air and you come back down and you say, "What did I get from the flight?" You know, that's a really good attitude to have, and I think I'll have to apply that way of thinking the next time I get lost in my own thoughts.
Which is daily.
Yeah.
Quite a lot, yeah. Unfortunately, most of the time it's jerking off and thinking about sexual fantasies, but still, maybe there's some great wisdom to be got from those twisted kinks.
Remember my good buddy, my black friend Devon?
Oh yeah,
That's
man.
I always try to be a righteous man and do the right thing, and usually it only lasts for a couple weeks or days, or for in my case, a couple hours.
It's
I
a
was like,
wise man.
yeah,
Wow.
I was like, yeah, he could stay on the righteous path for about 3 hours, and then he was back to hunting pussy. Yep.
You should get in
Mm.
contact with him again, man. Send him an email or something.
I loved his objectivity. He was an honest man. He was a good man.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
good.
would kind of summarize my ideas about this really quickly.
Go for
And
it, man.
John Paul Sartre wrote a book called Being in Nothingness, and there's a chapter on freedom, and he starts it by talk. He calls it non-being, but what he's really talking about is imagination, and he gives an example of workers living under intolerable conditions, but they lack imagination, so they never posit a reality that's better, so they never revolt.
Mm,
And this movement from grim reality to revolution to better conditions starts in the imagination. The imagination is imperative for change, but we cannot get stuck in imagination and believe that the imaginal is real. The imaginal objects or scenarios that we built are blueprints to be carried out and justified in reality itself. And it is tantamount to mental illness to create models for yourself and to misconstrue the model as the actual reality and not something to be implemented and tested and carried out in the real world.
So
oh man.
what do you
Oh, wait, hold
guys?
on, Austin. Austin, before I forget, please send me the name of that book, would you? Just send me a quick message on WhatsApp. Yeah.
Sure.
That's what you described there is exactly what happened to China. Oh,
Well,
you've got it right
can't
there.
really
All
see
right.
it, but
I can't
yeah,
really
it's
see.
quite the tome.
Yeah, like that is precisely what happened to revolutionary China. The exact same thing. Shit was so bad in China. So after, Civil War and Japanese invasion and then another civil war, that when the horrifying 1950s communism hit, you know, no one was capable of imagining anything else. The imagination was literally killed. And due to somebody who runs a creative writing class, I will tell you the creativity in this country, even today, is just sapped. They can work like dogs and they're unbelievable engineers, but when it comes to genuine creativity, there's something lacking in the entire society. And I think you put the fucking nail on the head. I'm sorry, Chase. I had to get the name of that book. Go ahead, man.
Austin, what do you think of the imagination and manifestation? Because they come from the same place, right? And if you want to manifest a future or an outcome or a goal, I mean, it takes an imagination, right? But you want it to be within proportions of reality. See, this is a struggle for me because I've talked to many people that say they can manifest. Can you? Can you manifest it? And how the fuck, do you know if it's the ego running things or if it was the right manifestation to make? It's a hard distinction for me.
Yeah, I
Because the
find
delusions are termed manifestation nowadays by many people. Many people.
right. And this goes to the point about the misunderstanding between the inability to discern imagination from reality that is so dangerous. This notion of manifestation, I think it was popularized by the book The Secret, that like you create vision
Oh
boards for
yeah,
yourself,
Yes.
I
and
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, you picture your the life as it should be. And I've never read the book, so I don't want to presume too much. But the people I've talked to imagine just imagining in your mind is sufficient to create real world changes, which I think is just the height of delusion, and is exactly what I was talking about. It's the lack of discernment between what is real and what is fantasy, and the proper and I'm using fantasy and imagination, all these things is kind of meaning the same thing. The imagination is used to create physics models and blueprints that are then to be applied in the real world and tested if they lead to the desired results. And that's how you verify them. But if you're just creating mental models in your mind, it does nothing, right? It makes you feel a little bit better. It's akin to dreaming, but there's no such thing as manifestation. What there is there's blueprint making or mental map making that you have to implement in the real world. They're like, there's no way around it. And I can't even imagine, I don't even know how these delusions persist. You've been thinking about a Ferrari for 20 years, dude. You're still living in your mother's basement. Like, how can you still believe in this?
So manifestation doesn't exist, and if it did, it would be after hypothesis testing of thoughts or imaginations. I have an idea, I test it in reality, I fine tune it, and then once I think I've got it, maybe then you can apply the term manifestation, or manifestation doesn't, it's just a ridiculous term. It's just,
Yeah, I think it's a ridiculous term. It's
okay.
like make a plan, but the plan will like carry itself out, which never happens in the real world. What
Hmm.
like write down a blueprint of a house and see if that house jumps out of the blueprint. That's just what ideas are. They're blueprints, and again, and if you're talking about you're making a plan to create a business, you're making a plan to build a house. What you're doing is you're building a physics model that's based on empirical data that's already in your mind. And if you're deluded and you have wrong ideas about reality, like you could make a house out of tinfoil, for example, it's not going to work out for you. So, and again, to make a plan to manifest something, you have to have an accurate physics model in your brain. And this
And
comes about through empirical engagement with reality.
and also you have to have incredible control of your brain. Like I think there's a Austin. You'll have to tell me if this is right because I could be remembering this wrong. But I think there is an old Tibetan Buddhist thing about the mind being a wild elephant. I could be remember. I don't know if you would know that or not, but they always say that the goal is to tame the elephant. And I often think that a fantasy is interesting because the best example is a sexual fantasy because people can get so into their sexual fantasy. You know what I mean? No need for porn. They can literally just get absolute. The movie is in their brain and it is real to them so much so that they come, you know? But that's that fantasy thing. It's difficult to sit down and say, all right, I'm going to think about how to be financially fiscal, for the next year and lay out a blueprint for that sort of thing. And my question is, why can't I have that same enthusiasm and clarity with useful thoughts? You know what I mean? Why is it the fantasy can be so potent and so powerful? And my normal thoughts are like a wild elephant. I can barely keep focus for a second, you know? And are these just two totally separate parts of my brain? Or no, they're in the same stadium. They're just playing different games. Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, Austin? Understand what I'm saying? Like,
Sure, I totally do. And you know who else has magnificent fantasy lives? Serial killers. BTK, Ted Bundy. They would fantasize for years or decades before they carried out their crimes, and it's just such a great example of manifestation, man. You really have to believe before you go out there and do, you know. So maybe a good example there. Maybe I'm off track.
No, it just it took me down. I was like, shit, that's
Can you
okay.
restate that question, Dean? I'm really sorry about that.
No, I'm just trying to ask, like, how come you can run away with fantasies, but with such clarity, but regular productive thoughts are almost impossible to hold down. Are these the same type of are they both thoughts? Are they both the same thing as going up in an airplane? You know what I mean? And coming down, or nah, one's all biological. That's your cock leading the way, whereas the other one is purely an exercise and mental focus.
Right. I'd say the question would to me would be useful to who? There's nothing more
Come down
useful
with
for the
blueprints,
propagation.
you know?
Yeah, there's nothing more useful for the propagation of the species than sexual
Yeah.
fantasies, if we're talking about fantasies.
Unless you're gay.
And
Yeah, but okay.
right, well, that's I think Schopenhauer would love. I mean, he never talked about it, but I think he has to love homosexuality because he thinks that people should not propagate it anymore. So maybe that would be a great alternative to mere abstinence. But yeah, I would say there's immense psychic power behind sexuality. It's like a Freudian notion, right? Sex is the primary motivator. You have infinite energy for sex, and again, I would go back to these examples of serial killers. Man, they moved the moon to kill people, but they wouldn't apply themselves. Like Bundy never became a lawyer, you know. Like it
But
just
have
shows
you
you
ever
the
had
power sexual
have you ever
energy
had
would.
the same intensity of clarity with something, for example, like something spiritual? You know what I mean?
Yeah, spirituality is it. Spirituality is where like besides and I'm not even that much very sexual of a person, but the pull that spiritual ideas have on me are extremely powerful.
Okay.
And yeah,
Okay. Well, I'll be here in the normal world with my ladyboys, and we'll just make it work from there.
hey man, that's fine too. I mean, that's fine. I'm
All
sure
right.
Chase agrees.
Yeah.
Sure.
Chase, did you have anything to say, man? I feel like you were just sitting there like with a puzzled look on your face.
Well, there's the sexual urge. I can get that overtaken. It's definitely me and Dean. Yours is more a spiritual sense. I'm thinking there's people with like the urge for power, for sure, and control.
Mm. And
It's
that
a
gives them
Yeah,
clarity. Yeah.
yes.
it's a very Nietzschean
Yeah.
idea.
I've ran into those types, and they don't care if they're destructive, as long as they keep moving up the food chain, or people that have this unbelievable need for like relationships, and it
Yeah.
just it just fosters these bizarre connections with people, usually unhealthy,
Yeah.
so when the urge is unbelievably strong, I said sexual, acts get out of control, relationships go bad. I could see the spiritual sense. You would think you're fucking better than everybody. And then the need for power, that can go bad real quick. Millions of people can die, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, when that life force energy gets directed in one way, I think again, but this is what we talked about earlier, right? You got to test it. But if you just let it run free and start calling it manifestation, I think it can get out of control real quick, man. You got to hone that in and like
It
you
is
said,
unbelievable.
gauge it. You got to gauge it. Yeah.
I remember there was during the COVID lockdowns, right? I was just got back into China, and China was real militant about all the stuff, and I had to spend uh, 21 days in a hotel, like locked
Fuck.
alone in a hotel, like
Fuck, man.
3 fucking weeks. You know
That's
what I mean?
jail. That's a
Oh,
jail sentence,
it
man.
was rough. It was rough, man. Like I could not leave, could not go outside, just stuck in there. So of course, like I set my all-time jerk off record during this time, you know what I mean? And I just went into I started to go a little crazy with fantasy and stuff like that. And this is something I never did before. I said, all right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write my sexual fantasy. I wrote an erotic story, 20,000 words. 20,000.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
Still have
impressive.
it to this day. And I'll tell you something else. I will never share with you the
I was gonna
title.
say, you gonna share it
I
next
will
time?
never share. No, 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 no. I share so much of myself on this podcast, not that one. But I
A
posted
thousand days of
online.
Sodom.
I basically, right. I posted it online in my little niche community and stuff like that. It is in my little fetish community. Yeah. It is actually the number one story on this website. The number one out of
Wow.
hundreds and hundreds of stories. And I had like over 1,000 comments on it. They were just, this is fucking great. This is great. And I was just like, man, when I'm horny, I'm Hemingway. Like this is
Wow.
this is unbelievable. If only this is why I was asking that question, Austin. If only I could take this energy and apply it to something worthwhile. If only I could do it. And yeah, that's where everything was coming from. That's why I was asking these questions, man. I wish I could harness that energy inside of me. Unfortunately, it's just for jerking off.
Dean, who did you read to inspire such profuse literature? Were you reading Desaad and some like Lovecraft? Like what?
I don't think you
Were
understood
there?
me. Set my jerk off record during COVID. This was all from my fantasies, man. This
That's
was just
incredible.
being totally bored and bet your dick is chafed. You've been going so hard, you can't do it, man. That's what COVID gave me, baby. They gave me a little bit of probably the deepest depravity I've been in.
What
There
was the
was
title? What was the title?
the
Hard
gift,
cocks and kung jump? What was it?
the
The
gift,
gift. The gift.
the
Okay.
gift.
All right.
Dean, were there circles of men fellatiing each other?
No,
Okay.
singular.
Oh,
It
just
was
one person?
actually it was just one person except at the very beginning and the very end. Yeah, yeah,
I don't want to give it away, but there's a book called The Eye, written by this guy Vitali, uh,
yeah.
but it involves them their sexual escapades in a church, and it ends with them killing a priest and ripping his eye out and putting the priest's eye into the girl's vagina. And I
Uh,
said,
oh,
"It's a great idea."
okay.
Did you reach levels? Did you reach those kind of levels of sadism?
No, it was pure kink. And like my I can't go into my kink. I share enough of myself on this podcast, but I'll put it to you this way. We all have our fantasies and I dare to indulge mine. That's all I can say. It's nothing
Was Elon
awful.
Musk there?
Elon was not there. He was not giving
Okay.
salutes while I was fucking away, but it was definitely a moment of profound creative energy. Explosion of creative energy, an explosion in more than one ways. But yeah, I was pleased with my capabilities in that moment. It was just directed in the worst possible direction.
Some of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
erotic stories, you know, it's fascinating. Some can really turn you on, and it's never just the acts,
Yeah.
it's the details. Like to me, it's like the mindset is set, and the intangibles around the situation, and the comments always show it. But I remember I sometimes get in there like, man, this guy's really deep into this fantasy, man. But uh,
Um,
but there are some incredible writers with some of that shit into the kink shit. And I think it's exactly like you said, Dean. It's the one thing that takes them. It's just everything else is blocked out, and they can do it
yeah.
for days. You don't have to eat. You don't have to drink.
The-
You're right. You just keep
I had
writing.
one friend. This was sorry years ago, but I had one friend who I let read it before I published it. And it was interesting because he's like, "You're so good at like the mental, like what's going on inside somebody's head and stuff like that." But he gave me a great criticism because he was like, "But the climax, the critical moment, the big climax, right?"
Yeah.
He's like, it left me going like, ah, like I was expecting more. And I was like, you know why? Because as I'm writing this, I'm jerking off, and I
You
jerk
outpaced
off before I
yourself.
get to the climax.
Oh, dude, that's the
I had
problem,
to edge
Dean.
it. I had to edge it and then figure it out. One
You
day
you
I'll be president of the
dissipated
United States and they'll be playing this.
the
They'll be playing.
subtle sexual force has to continue. You cannot ejaculate. Yeah,
It's where the
as you
power
said.
comes from. It's where the creativity comes from, man. You
Exact.
gotta,
Well,
you
this
know.
is basic tantric theory, man. You edge
I don't know
for
what that is. What's tantric theory?
well, you don't ejaculate. You have sex, but you don't ejaculate. You build up the prana, man. You never release it, dude, ever.
You practice this?
I don't know, but that's
I
what
was
they
about to
say.
say, what crazy person is practicing this, man? I
You
don't know.
never come. There are techniques and like Taoist sexual practice where either you like, maybe you eat the semen again, but that's kind of weird, or you like hold a point on your taint and it like redirects the semen back into your body. But
What about
uh,
a chastity cage? Can we get behind that? Yeah, like
well, as long as it keeps you from ejaculating, you little animal,
oh
that's
man,
all. That's
okay.
what really matters.
Austin's getting philosophical in the bedroom. I like that.
Well, yeah, I
Some
wouldn't just want to specify like sexual energy and spiritual practice is recognized within Vajrayana, Taoist, Hinduism as being the most potent form of base energy. And you take it up and you send it up the body through the chakras and you transmute it into higher energy. But man, you're definitely onto something, dude. You transmuted the sexual energy into a literary genius. It's like it sounds like the crime and punishment of deranged sexual
okay.
literature is what you're
Let me tell
describing.
you, man. I've written a lot of stuff in my life, man. Dissertation, a thesis, all that sort of stuff. But just destroys all of it. All of it, man.
Dean,
It's beautiful. It's a work of art,
you
man.
need to publish this on Amazon, dude. You got a
It's
jewel.
not. I'll never sell it, man. It's for the people.
Just have
I I,
a.
I
Don't
really
put your
did have
real
that
name.
moment
The real name,
because
something else.
I thought about selling it and I couldn't do it. I literally was like, no, this if I somehow God will judge me even more if I put a price on it. Like I couldn't do it. So yeah, it's been online
Dean,
for years now.
Just
I'm
come up with.
curious. So you're not going to tell us what it is, right?
What the kink is or the
No, no,
story.
not just what the story, what it is. Would you ever direct me to find it?
No, Austin, I can't do that. I respect you too much. I don't
That's
want you to
fine,
go into
man.
these worlds.
And I had a follow-up question. Did you
Yeah.
read Naked Lunch by Burroughs? Because
No,
there's
I
a lot
don't know
of
what
weird
that
sexual
is.
stuff in there.
I
Okay.
don't know what that is. Sorry, buddy. Yeah.
Uh,
It sounds interesting though.
William S. Burroughs?
No, man. I have no idea.
He put an apple on his wife's head in Mexico, and he was going to shoot it off her head, and he shot her in the face. But he was also he was part of the Beat generation, kind of like the guy who wrote
Yeah.
On the Road,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Kerouac.
Yeah,
He
Kerouac.
was he was a heroin addict. He was well known for that, well known pedophile too, but also a great writer. And I think that's what
Are
we
you
should
calling
focus
me a
on.
pedophile, Austin? Is that what you're doing right
No,
now?
he wrote
I'm not a
deranged sexual literature.
pedophile.
No, dude. I never for once thought that, but I do think you have a deranged sexual mind like Burroughs did.
Well, I will say that I have been lucky enough to be a gay man, and that means automatically you get to live out a lot more of your sexual fantasies than a straight guy. And I have had the opportunity to live out my sexual fantasies on multiple occasions, and I will say that
Wow.
those are some top tier experiences in my life. I'm very grateful that I got the chance to make the fantasy reality. So, and then I moved on from it.
Manifestation.
Like I don't even do anything with it these days. That it's in the past. It's in the past, but still, I'm glad that I at least got the taste.
See, Dean carried out the magical procedure. He went from fantasy to reality. And I respect that.
Because my cock had such power over me. It manifested. My cock manifested it. It made it real. It was just one
Well,
day.
let,
I'm
let
gonna
me
take that
interject.
chakra from the lower part of my body and move it up to my head, and then nothing will stop me. Nothing.
One of the favorite techniques, Dean, just one more thing. Within it's called chaos magic, which is developed in like the 80s or 90s. But you have an idea. You have an idea of something that you want, and you write it out, and you take the repeating letters out, and then you use those to create a symbol, like your own personal symbol, and it's called a sigil. And
Huh.
in the chaos procedure, at least one example of them, you stare at it with intense, focus, and you masturbate. And you have to be looking at it when you ejaculate, or it won't come true. And
I don't know if
dude,
I
I
could
think you hit on this
because
magical
like
procedure
because
yourself.
I'm so in my head that it'd be difficult to just absolutely stare at something with focus. Like it would be like I was jerking off to the symbol. Is that what you're supposed to do? Like you jerk off to the
Yeah,
symbol?
yeah.
Austin, you've taken us to places today I never thought that we'd come. I never thought I'd be sharing secrets like that too, and I never thought Chase would look so handsome in a tank top. These are all things I didn't think would happen today,
I
but they
just want
did.
to say that he called you deranged, and the definition for deranged is bizarre behavior, unable to think or act normally, crazy or insane, and completely unable to think clearly. I was like, that's perfect for being
When I
sexually.
think about my dick, yes, I think that
Yes.
deranged is a very apt word for my dick. It has taken me to strange places throughout my life.
Hmm.
I tell you what, I'm very glad. I seriously am glad I'm gay because if I was straight, I think I probably would have killed myself. I definitely would have impregnated a few women, and I definitely would be covered in all kinds of horrible sexual diseases. And
Or
probably
in
totally,
jail. Yeah.
yeah. Just, I was very lucky in that respect. So thank you, Jesus, for turning me into a sodomite. I appreciate it.
Thanks, God. Thanks,
Yeah.
Allah.
Thank you, Buddha.
It's hitting all the bases. All right. All right. Shall we end it there, guys?
Sure.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for listening to the Divine Brothers. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.